Hey Krafty Friends, this is Jen of Katahdin Krafts, and welcome to my first card for ScrapbookPal's YouTube channel. Today I am making this cute little slimline card featuring Avery Elle's Christmas mice, stamps, and dies. I'm also using Avery Elle's Christmas train for its tree and some of the tree decorations. So the first thing I did was stamped out all of my images with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, which is Copic friendly, onto 110-pound cardstock, my cardstock of choice when I'm going to do Copic marker coloring. And as you can see, I'm just sliding or moving the pieces around because I wanted several candy canes, several presents, and several candles. So I just moved them around the page and stamped up a bunch. And now I'm going to start with my Copic marker coloring with the little mice. I wanted a nice warm gray for these little holiday mice because they're warming up by the fire. And so I went with a W2 and a W4 and a W6. Most of the time when I do my Copic coloring, I like to do it in 3 different tones, the light, the medium, and the darkest. And I start with my lightest tone and I shadow map my areas where I want those shadows to be. And then I go ahead and add the medium tone and then the darker tone. So I just build up that ink basis and I let that bleed right into the fibers of the paper. So you make your paper work with you for the blending. So that gives it a nice blended look with a little bit of dimension. For the ears, I'm using R00 and R01. And then back to the R00. Some of these smaller areas, I only use 2 colors. And now I'm doing a lot of coloring in this card actually. So I tried to keep it with some basic color groups. So with my violets, my V's, I use V12, 15, and 17. And I'm doing various presents and some of the ornaments and the little mouse's outfit. I didn't want to do all traditional Christmas colors. I wanted to do a little bit of a soft palette, a soft pastel palette. I knew there were plenty of other elements in the card that was going to have the traditional red and greens, like the candy cane and the Christmas tree. So I went with more of a pastel kind of colors for their outfits and then the presents. And now I'm using my R's, my R27, 29, and then R05 for my light. And for this tree, I just used 2 different colors, a G14 and a G19. And I'm just going and blending it out. Like I said, I map out with my lighter tone, and then I go with the deeper tone. And that just gives it that ink basis, so that deeper tone goes into the paper, and then you can pull it out as you blend with your lighter tone. And I did the holly in the same green, and then the same red as the candy cane. And now for my blues, I use a B93, a B95, and a B97 for his outfit. And again, some of the ornaments and the presents. I did end up using a lot of Copic markers and a lot of different colors in this card. But like I said, I tried to keep it at least with the same groups as I moved along. So all the violets are the same violet. The blues are generally the same blue. But this is a RV on these presents just for a little variation. So RV10 and RV17 and RV11. And just blending all those out. And again, so in some of the smaller areas, I just use 2 colors because there's just not enough room sometimes to get that definition. And so my yellow trio group is Y15, Y18, and Y19. And in this card, a lot of my favorite color groups actually came into play. I tend to use those same ones for most of the things that I do: yellow, purple, blue. So everybody gets their little favorites and their color combinations that work best for them. And these are definitely some of mine. On that bell, I did use some YRs in 23, 24, and 27. I wanted to achieve more of a golden look than the bright yellow. And now I'm moving on to some cool grays on the candles. I just wanted them to look white, so a little gray shadow in C1. And you can see I started doing that coffee mug originally in greens, but I didn't care for that. I thought it was a little bit too bold and I wanted it to have a more softer colors again. So I went with I just stamped them out again and went with some softer colors in the pinks and then that gold again. And now for the tree base, I'm using E23, E25, and E27. And now I'm going to go ahead and start cutting all of these out with purple tape and the die cuts, the coordinating die cuts. Now I wanted it to have a fireplace in this scene. So I pulled out my Lawn Fawn's Christmas Dreams and I stamped out the little rug, which I'm going to use as a Christmas tree skirt, and the fireplace. And I wanted this to have a little bit of a reddish tone for the bricks. So I used E11, E13, and then E07, which definitely has a reddish undertone to that brownish. And then for the darker pieces of wood, just for a little bit of contrast on the mantle and the fireplace stand, we'll go with a base. We'll go with fireplace base. I used a little bit darker E13 and E15 for a little bit of contrast, like I said, in that. And E17 now is going to go into the middle. I wanted that to have a dimensional look, so it looked like you were looking into the fireplace there. And now for the actual flames in the fire, I'm going back to that same trio of yellows, the Y15 and Y17 with the Y19, and then I added a little YR18 in there just for a little an orangey look as well. Give it some different looks into the flames. And then those logs, I wanted them darker than what the fireplace is again, so I went with E29, E27, and E23. And now for the Christmas tree skirt, I wanted to give it a candy cane kind of stripe look. So I just used my T-ruler and made some stripes down some diagonal stripes, and then used my R combination of R29, R27, and R05 again, and just went back and forth and gave those a little bit of dimension, each stripe, and blended them right out. I didn't need it to be perfect. I thought it came out cute. And just to match those candy canes. Now for the windows, like as I was trying to create this scene, I knew that I was going to need some sort of window. I decided to use Honeybee Stamps Farmhouse add-on die, or die set that had a little window in there. So I used both the backing and the front panes. And for the front panes, I used E23 and E25 to make it look like a wood grain. And then I wanted it to be a winter sky behind that. So I laid down B24, and then I'm just marking it with a pencil where the panes are so I can add some shadows. And so for my shadows, I'm using B28 and just going right directly on those. And then I'm going to use B26 to add just a little bit more I'm going to blend this out with B24 again, and then I'm going to go back in with B26 and then my B24 again, and just getting out a little bit of wintry shadows. And I wanted it to look like it was kind of frosty behind that and that it was storming outside. Now for my background, this was something different and outside of my box, but it actually was a lot of fun. So what I did is I just used my ruler and made a mark where I wanted the floor and then the wallpaper to meet. And then I went and 1/2 inch across for my wallpaper, and then 1/4 inch across for all of my flooring, and then just marked it about 1.5 inches and made little slash marks for wood planks. And so very simple background. It didn't really take a whole lot of work. And then I'm just going back in and laying down my shadows, my shadow mapping again with E23. And now, just to make it straight, I did use my ruler again, but now I'm just going to go in and start filling it in. So first E25 to go a little bit darker to make that definition of each wood plank. And then I'm going to use E27 as my darkest for the floor. And just freestyling it. I didn't worry about perfection. And then I'm going to make those little, and I'm totally not a carpenter, as you can tell, so I'm calling them the little wood plank pieces or little, yeah, pieces in between. I don't know. And then I'm laying down E23 now for all of it and blending out those harsher lines. I'm liking this. We just did actually our whole floor over in the upstairs of our house, so that probably gave me this inspiration. So I probably should know. I should say we didn't do it over. My husband and my father-in-law did it over because I did not. So that's why I don't really actually know the terminology for it, but it looks pretty. So I went in with E25 again so I could get, so I didn't want really harsh lines, but at the same time you want to see the shadows and the definition of each plank. And just smooth all that out, and there you have a wood floor. And now for my background, you could use this with any color scheme really, but I didn't want it to be the center of attention, so I just decided to go with my C's. So I'm using C3 just to start the layering, just like I did with the wood floor. And I'm going to go back with C1. And again, I wanted it to look more like a white background. And a little C3 again. And then I'm going to just blend that out with some C00. And then again, a very simple background. And this marker was getting a little bit dry on me. As you can see, I tested it on my finger. It was a little bit dry, so I think I did use a little C0 to go back and just to blend it out a little bit better. That is one thing that I haven't done yet, is replace the ink in one of my Copic markers. So that is something I need to do in the very near future. I just have to sit down and figure out how to do that. I'm a little bit nervous. So as you can see, I ended up cutting out another window because I thought for balance I needed another one. And I used the Lawn Fawn's Everyday Sentiment banner dies to cut out my sentiment. And now I'm going to use my art glitter glue to go ahead and put the panes onto the actual window bases that I made. I love the art glitter glue, especially for something like this. Do you see that precision tip? When you're working with really delicate pieces like that, that comes in super handy. And now, as you can see, I laid out my card how I thought that I wanted it. And I'm going to put a little bit of white gel pen on these windows to make it look like it's snowing outside. Just very simple, just putting some dots on there. And now I pulled out my diamond Stickles. I forgot actually how fun Stickles really is. I have not used my Stickles in a while. But I love this look. It looks like snow is building up on those window panes, and it's all glistening and pretty. I tried to show you, I'm not sure how well you could see it there, but it really gave a nice effect. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start adhering my whole card together. And as you can see, I use my EK Success tweezers a lot. I use them to not only move the pieces, but to also help glue it down and just kind of push in that center. They come in super handy. And for especially all these little pieces, like the little bow in her hair, how cute is that? I thought about putting a little bit of holly in there too, so the set is really versatile. You could put a little holly in her hair or the bow. It's really it's very cute. Now I'm decorating my Christmas tree with a couple of the ornaments. As you can see, I definitely made extras, but I wasn't really sure what my layout and my plan would be. So having a few extra on hand is not a bad thing. And I'm going to put the tree base right onto the Christmas tree skirt. And now adhere everything onto the fireplace. Again, that precision glue tip comes in very handy for all these little tiny pieces. And this is the way I like to make cards. This is definitely, I mean, pattern paper is fun and stencils and all that, but I love a good scene like this that's with little critters and all these little details that you can build, and mixing and matching different stamp sets. That is definitely the best way for me. Like, in my opinion, that is what I enjoy the best. And so I added a little bit of those diamond Stickles to the tops of those stockings. And now I thought that maybe it needed a little trim at the bottom for definition between the wall and the floor. So I went back and just put a little bit of the darker E27 and that, just to make it look a little bit better like a little bit more definition between the wall again and the floor. And I'm just going to build my scene again, get all the elements where they need to be so I could adhere them down. And at this point I still had to decide where my sentiment was going to go, so I was playing around with that, and as well as the color that I wanted to use with it. And I wanted that bell to kind of almost be like mistletoe, so that's why I put that in between them. And now I'm using Stella to add some shimmer and shine to some of the elements of the card. The candles, the candle flame, the flame of the fire, the ornaments, and then the star. And I started off doing some greens on the sentiment and then trimming off the banner, the little flags on the banner, but I didn't care for that. I didn't like the way it looked without the little flag on the end of that banner, and I didn't really like the way the green was too bold, I thought, or just didn't go with what I wanted for it. So now I'm using a little bit of mono adhesive for the bigger sections, the bigger chunkier pieces, not the precision ones, and some foam dots to add a little dimension to the little mice so that they pop off the scene because they are the center of attention, and the bell to be the same dimension as them. And then I decided right then that I definitely did not want that green, so I went ahead and stamped out another one and left the flag on the little edge on one end, but trimmed it off on the other. And now for my card base, I cut an 8x9 piece of cardstock, and then I scored it at the 4 point, and then I used, or the 4-inch mark, and then I used B24 to go around the edge and make a frame. And then I decided that the sentiment would be nice if I matched that completely, so I used the B24 again. That's the same that I'm picking up that's in the windows, and so I'm using that for the sentiment and the frame. And I like that. I thought it gave it a nice warm holiday look, with the snowstorm outside, drinking some hot beverage, warming up by the fire, and sending holiday merriment and cheer. And my Stella again to add a little bit of shimmer to that sentiment as well, because you never really can have enough shimmer. That's definitely, I should have a t-shirt that says that. There's never enough shimmer. And there you have it. Oh, see, more shimmer. Gotta add it to that bow, to the presents, and to the mugs. And then I had a lot of extra little elements already cut out and colored, so I decided to go ahead and put some in the inside of the card to dress that up a little bit. You could stamp another sentiment, but I like to leave mine blank so then I can write a personalized note to the recipient. And there you go. A fun slimline card. I hope you enjoyed this card today, and everything that I used will be listed below and can be found at the ScrapbookPal Store. If you haven't subscribed already to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel, please do so. You will find lots of fun inspiration there, lots of talented people on their team. I appreciate you stopping and crafting with me today. Take care. Bye.